Welcome to another episode of Book Club, where Elliot and I pick a book that's meant a lot to us or changed our lives in some way and talk about it. This week we're running through Deep Work by Cal Newport, which is a 2016 cult classic hit within the Silicon Valley and the developer community. We're excited to talk about this. I read it about 5 years ago and read it again recently for this video, so we're excited to dive into it. Deep Work is about reaching your full potential through working in an undistracted, focused way for long periods of time. You reach your full potential by doing this by applying yourself to the absolute limits on a single task. And only then will you be able to reach your full potential and produce valuable work. So Cal Newport has been a proponent of deep work for a number of years, and he firstly approached it from a productivity point of view. He wanted to squeeze more out of his everyday as he lives a dual life of an author and as a professor. This book came about because he was noticing an increasing trend of distractedness and shallow work, as he called, as the workplace became more open, more connected. Cal Newport saw the value of deep work in his own life. He was able to produce a lot more than most people, but he also saw the world going the opposite direction towards a more shallow life. And combining these two ideas together, the idea that deep work is valuable, but it's also becoming more rare, is what pushed him to write this book, as he thinks it's going to be the most important skill in the next 100 years of being able to concentrate and apply yourself in a focused way on a complex task. Cal Newport not only argues that deep work is valuable and is going to be more valuable as time goes on, but he also argues that it is the way for a meaningful life. And the reason why he says this is for three reasons. The first reason is neurologically. When we are distracted, when we are unfocused, we are generally unhappy. Our mind will be triggered to wander to different places. It will tend to focus on the bad. It will allow space for negative thoughts to grow into. Focusing on the now and the task at hand is a form of positive thinking. The second reason is a psychological argument, and it's been shown that humans derive more happiness and value from when they are working rather than relaxing. If they have a voluntary task that they are able to apply themselves that will stretch them, they are generally happier than when they are relaxing. This has been shown in many different situations and many different studies. The philosophical argument is that we are able to derive value and sacredness and meaning from the work at hand and from the task at hand. And this has been done across a number of different points in history and by many, many different people. Part one of the book is all about convincing us that deep work is valuable. Deep work is actually getting increasingly rare in today's world, and deep work is the way to lead a meaningful life.
So part two acts as a field guide about how to turn your life from what it is today into a deep life. And it's got 4 sections. It's working deeply, so how to put these rules into place. It's embracing boredom. It's quitting social media, which was much more controversial in 2016 when this was written. And finally, it's drain the shallows, which is about getting all of the shallow things, or as many as you can, out of your life. Now let's dive into those one by one. So the first one, working deeply, is really the 101 about how to set up periods of deep work within your life. So Cal Newport goes into a number of different ways that you can bring deep work into many, many different working environments. So, there's one he calls the monastic deep work setting, in which you isolate yourself maybe in a cabin or in a hotel room, as many famous authors have, and just focus on your work and really cut yourself off from the outside world. There's other styles which are, I suppose, more conducive to modern responsibilities, family life, and everything else, which is about putting pockets of deep work in your existing day and still keeping the main structure of your life around that. He talks about how to ensure that, for lack of a better word, how to live a deep life without becoming an asshole. Most of us don't work on our own, and even those that do, we have clients, and you can have a deep life that still involves regular communication, dealing with your colleagues, not abandoning your family, and all of the structure that's needed to put that into place. So, one example of this is Neil Stephenson. If you've read a lot of sci-fi, you've probably come across his books. He is very famously, I guess, in the monastic style of deep work. He doesn't respond to media or emails or communications or anything else. And his general philosophy is that, if he replies to anyone, then the bar is set such that he will need to reply to a bunch of people. And he feels he can do a lot more good for the world by bunkering down, writing these books, getting them out there, than spending time replying to fans. But what's important about that is that he doesn't just ghost people. He's very publicly set that as his MO. And so people know, and people know how to operate, within the world of Neil Stephenson. Idea number 2 in this section of the book is embracing boredom. This is something we talked about in our review of 4,000 Weeks as well, which you should check out. But this is the idea that a lot of our lives today are really about hooking us with little bursts of immediate gratification. The slot machine of, do I have any new tweets to read, is very real. And psychologically, if you are always tapping into something and not ever letting your brain sort of go into that default percolating mode where it's mulling over things and diving deep on problems, it's going to be really difficult. Working deeply and working deep on, say, a difficult AI model, or writing a paper, or producing some interesting results, or finalizing a project for a client that's really important, it's not easy. And Cal Newport mentions this many times. He says, this is not easy work, and we're not really day to day adapted to this sort of really deep, strenuous activity. So we need to learn to almost fall in love with boredom as a way to train our brains in order to be able to switch on the deep work when we need it. So idea number 3 in the book, one that was very controversial in 2016, but it's definitely picked up steam recently, is the idea about quitting social media. So if there were ever a set of companies that were really super optimized towards grabbing little bites of your attention, it would be social media, especially 2016 era social media. Twitter and Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and everything else, they're there to keep you on the platform. A lot of their business models are really about grabbing attention and selling that attention to advertisers. While these tools can be useful, Cal Newport argues that just because they have some utility doesn't mean that we should be embracing them, because the costs are high. And if we want to have a deep life, quitting social media might be the thing to do. All right, so the final section in Cal's book before he concludes is about this idea of draining the shallows. Most of us work 9 to 5, as the song goes, what a way to make a living. But the idea here is that, realistically speaking, I know it's true of me and I know it's true of many others, 40 hours a week is not filled with high output, high impact work. There will be sections in our day, if you're a developer, that's often early in the morning when no one else is going to bother you. It might be late at night, depending on how you work. But that's that quiet time. That's when the key work gets done. Part of it is about getting rid of that guilt that comes with, I'm getting paid for 40 hours, so every hour of that 40 hours needs to be my mega productive, 4 hours that I get done in the morning before meetings start. And realizing that's not realistic. It's not realistic for anyone. You got to do the admin, you got to do the emails, you got to do everything else, but drop the guilt that you're not burning at 500% every single hour of the day, because nobody is. I can tell you from experience, nobody is.
For me, the major takeaway from the book was the fact that deep work can be meaningful. I completely forgot about that, having read it 5 years ago and then rereading it recently. I forgot that a focused life is a way to derive meaning. When you hear about a master craftsman and you hear about them, they never go to work. They never go to work. Their life is their work. And it reminds me of a famous documentary called Jiro Dreams of Sushi, which follows the chef Jiro Ono. This man has been cutting sushi and fish for 50 years, and it doesn't look like he's ever worked a day in his life, because he's so incredibly passionate about it, so incredibly focused. And that's what I want. I want to be able to pick something and devote myself fully to it, so I can be like Jiro and dream of sushi.
So the thing I like most about this book is just how pragmatic it is. Cal has done a really good job here of writing a book that's applicable to someone like me or Tom, who is a founder and has pretty much total control over our time, all the way down to somebody who is early in their career, working 9 to 5 probably doesn't have that much control. There's lessons there for absolutely everyone.
What would your ideal deep work schedule look like? What are you going to be aiming for over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, this is a good one. Hey, I think I like flip flop a lot around this. I listen to, say, Lex Friedman's podcast where he talks about how he spends his day doing work, and then at like 9 o'clock, he just like starts writing code until the wee hours of the morning. Similar to Brandon Sanderson and his writing schedule. There's a part of me that's like loves the idea of being able to tuck away at night, just me and the keyboard and get some real good stuff out the door.
I would love to be a bimodal or monastic person, but I know I'm not. I don't know why, but I'm just thoroughly enjoying the thought and the romanticism of that life. But I don't think that's for me. But I think there is an element of the bimodal that would work perfectly for me, which is retreating to a place that is very special to me once a year for an extended period of time, working deeply during the morning, and then having the afternoon and the evenings free to spend with friends and family.
So what do you think gets in the way of that?
What gets in the way of that for me is that I'm a bit too much of a people pleaser. If someone wants to meet at 10 a.m., I'll be like, sure, that's great. I am not as enough of a dictator with my schedule.
All right, so both you and I have lived a bunch of different lives over our careers. Let's think about people that are sort of, not first day on the job, but they've been in their career a little while. They're still reporting up to people. They're on a 9 to 5. Looking back at your life back then, what do you reckon is the best way to slot in some deep work that isn't go and hide in a meeting room for 4 hours in a given day?
So when I used to work at McKinsey, we used to do something called team learnings, where when you started working with a new team, you would introduce yourself, you would introduce what you were good at, what you're working on, and what you struggle with. You would also instruct the team on how you like to work. One thing that I always did was I told them that I was working on focusing on a single task. And the way I told them that they could tell that I was focusing and I didn't want to be interrupted was I had my headphones on. So that was my signal to the rest of the team, asking them to give me space. Ideally, you would leave the room as well. But I think the important lesson from that is be open about it. No one's going to get you in trouble, or you're not going to be in trouble for trying to do more work and focusing. People are going to support you in that. Now, what you do need to do is be flexible with when that is. And when you don't own your calendar, that is a little bit tougher, but you can generally always find a space in the day to do so. When I had a client-heavy project where there was lots of meetings, I would always control the invites so I would be able to put them ideally where I wanted. Obviously, that didn't always work, but you could probably get 4 out of 5 times in a place that you wanted to work.
Yeah, so I think, look, when you're in a management role and you've got a team that reports to you, being in charge of when that stuff happens is another good tip. Very similarly, if you can set the meetings, put them at a time when you know that, you're lower energy or you're not in the mood for deep work, or it's just out of your general deep work environment. Try and build it into the culture of your team and into the people that report to you as much as you can, because not only will you do better, but I think your team will do better as well. Well, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll be back for another book club very, very soon. Check out all of Cal Newport's books, his blog, his podcast. He does a lot of stuff, as you can imagine, from somebody so invested in deep work. If you enjoyed this, subscribe, leave a comment below if you think there's any books we should check out. But otherwise, keep working deeply.